something to share in either wisdom, story, or logic, and it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils, and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and store of others.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited to talk with a Pleiadian Ambassador, Starseed channel, Pleiadian Warrior of the Heart, and a channel for the Pleiadian since childhood, Ascension Guide, Akashic Records, Starseed Reader, Psychic Medium Reading, Psychic Medium Healer, Reiki Master, Shamanic Practitioner, Visionary, Indigo Adult, Lightworker channel, Empathic, Intuitive, Healing channel, Warrior of the Light, and Rainbow Warrior. Welcome to the Missing Link Live. Soma ARah, aka Carol Noonan. How are you doing today, sister?
Hi, Jesse. It's great to be here. I'm very much looking forward to this, and I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm here in Ireland, which is very cold at the moment.
Right on. Well, that's great to hear. So why don't you start off with telling us about yourself and your journey, a little bit about your background, your education, what part of the world you grew up in, what part of the world you're in now, I guess Ireland, as you say, if you like disclosing that information, what got you knowing about, the Pleiadians and Starseeds and Warriors of the Heart and all of the stuff that, you're into. Maybe you can just tell us how you got into all of that as well.
Well, I have quite an unusual childhood. Lots of always craved normal and never had it. And I've had a lot of extreme abuse as a child that caused me to leave my body and connect with the Pleiadians. And so the whole of my childhood, actually, from the time I was in the cot, I've been told by a shaman that I trained with in Ireland that I was abused as a child in the cot. So that sounds horrific, and it is. But at the same time, because of the trauma and all of that dysfunction and abuse and horrificness, every time something negative happened, there was a positive that would happen. I was born awake, aware and conscious and knowing, and I was one of those children that remembered their past lives, various different ones, not just a singular one, but various different ones. And so the trauma brought for me something good came of it in the extreme. So I'll share an experience that happened with me when I was 8, and it was during abuse, and I had a man laying on top of me, and I left my body and I connected to the Pleiadians, or they connected to me. And I was only gone a few minutes, literally not more than a few minutes, maybe even a few seconds. And I connected in with them. I didn't know who they were at the time. And then I came back, and I knew that things were going to be okay. But I was always connected to spirit and spirit guides and loved ones and my granddad, and we lived in Ireland for a good few years when we left Namibia and South Africa, and I would be out in the garden playing with nature spirits and the fairies and tree spirits and my spirit guides as well. So I was born very aware of spirit and grew up with spirit and my spirit guides, who always were of huge support. And then when I was 12, I had an out-of-body experience where I just was done, really done. I wanted out. I'd had enough. Didn't want to talk to anyone about anything. Didn't want to see anyone. I just wanted to leave. I was really done. And it wasn't a call for help or anything like that. And so I was on my mattress. I didn't have a bed. I had a mattress on the floor, which I was actually okay with, and still am. But I have a bed now. But I was retching and sobbing, and it wasn't just crying. It was retching from my soul, and I was wishing myself out and deciding on tablets. And then the next thing I knew, I was in the corner of my room on the right-hand side of the room above the door, and I was looking down on my body, and because of this experience was so profound for me, I'll never forget the layout of the room and exactly the details. And I left my body and connected in with Jesus, who came to me, and I could see him very clearly. And he took me on a journey that lasted for about 3 or 4 hours, and then he showed me part of my soul's journey, and that everything I was experiencing was the way it was meant to be, and that things would be okay someday. Not at that particular time, not that day, but things would be okay. And he showed me a lot of lessons and my own karma, and explained a lot of natural laws to me about my own energy. And then when he understood that I got it, I understood about myself, then he showed me the bigger picture for humanity and some of the bigger natural laws. And then when I came back, I was gone for about 3 or 4 hours, and when I came back, I was just totally blissful for about 3 or 4 weeks, and nothing outside of me had changed. I was still in exactly the same environment with the same parents, the same siblings, nothing had changed, but I had most definitely changed, and it was very blissful for 3 or 4 weeks, which gradually ebbed away. And then so there's one more story I'd like to share, and then if you have any questions. Okay.
Yeah, so, of course, this is your time. Share away.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. So then after that experience, it was almost as if I was taking stock, and in a very blissful way, just feeling my way around. People and the situation I was in, and kind of looking at it. And I think I might have a technical. Oh, there you are. So after that experience, I began to meditate alone in my room, and I didn't know that's what it was called, but it felt really good to me. It felt that I was getting great benefit of just being in the silence alone and being able to tune in. So that's what I did, and then I started to read books at that age, which I would source from the local library, which was very small, but it did have a good stock of spiritual books. some by Edgar Casey and Doris Stokes, who was a famous medium in the UK. And I would just, between the ages of 12 and 16, that is what I did. I stayed in my room and meditated and connected in with the Pleiadians and read books and just kind of cocooned myself in. And at the same time, I was also receiving transmissions and downloads from the Pleiadians. But I had no idea that that's who they were. I just always thought of them as my guides. I never realized then that that's who they were. And then there was another time, I was 12 as well, when I had my first conscious. Well, it wasn't the first conscious, but it was one of them that was quite important, where I was. Yes, I have to apologize for my laptop. I most definitely do need to upgrade. Yeah. Okay, so I had walked into the lounge and the news was on. My mum was watching the news and there was an image of the Sphinx. And this was back in the 80s. I don't remember exactly what year, but the Sphinx was on the TV and I was held in this vortex of energy where I just couldn't move, which has happened quite a lot, numerous times over the years, over my life, where it's a safety mechanism that the Pleiadians thank you, Laura. Sorry, I just got distracted there by your comment. That's lovely. So that they seem to hold me in this vortex of energy where I just physically can't move. And there was a car accident that I would have been involved in had they not stepped in and held me in that vortex of energy. So it is always a safety mechanism that they use on me to very much protect me, and they've done that several times over the years. But I think that was the first time they did it. Oh no, actually they did it before that. So they had stopped me from entering the school system, which I might explain a bit about in a minute. And so anyway, I walked into the lounge and the news was on and the Sphinx was there. And I remember getting a download, and I remember an energy to my right, which is normally where Ashtar stands, which is who I channel, and the Pleiadian collective. And I remember this energy on my right, and I was looking at the news and receiving a telepathic transmission or download to do with Egypt and the Sphinx. And again, I was held in this vortex of energy where I couldn't move, so I was stood in the doorway, and I could see an image of. I was receiving an image in my mind's eye of the Sphinx, but it had a lion's head, and I was told that that is what originally it was a lion's head, and that then I was shown the paw I think it's the right paw as you look head on. Steps going down, and an area or a space or a room with stone walls. I remember seeing the walls and secret areas beneath the Sphinx. And then there's also a doorway in between the paws that's been blocked off. So that was when I was 12. That's one of my earliest memories. And then at around the same time, they also stopped me entering the school system. So I would go to school, and it would be quite a journey from Hackney to Stamford Hill, just past Dalston in London. And it would take me quite a journey to get there because it was 2 buses. It was an hour away, and I would often have to beg my mum for the bus money to get there, because we never got an allowance or anything like that. Or pocket money, and so that would be a big journey, and I did that maybe a handful of times where I would get there, and then again this vortex of energy just in front of the school gates, and I could feel it. It was very large, like the gates were huge. They were huge school gates, black wrought iron, that maybe about 30 or 40 feet across, and then 20 feet high. And then, so I would just be standing there for ages, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. And I was more concerned with people passing by, what they would think, because I'd just be looking up the gates and kind of held in a altered mind state. So I was always very concerned what people would think. But anyway, eventually I stopped doing that because I thought there's no point. You know, it's such a long journey, and there's 2 buses, and you know, in the winter time, and you know, I just stopped doing it. So I just stayed home in the end. And later on, they shared with me, I think it was during the shamanic training that I was doing, they shared with me that I would have been lost to them, which is why they didn't let me into the school system. So once they shared with me that with me, I was very grateful, and then realized that it wasn't something to, because I always thought of it as a lack of not having had a secondary education. But when they explained that to me, that it was a plus, I realized then that it actually was a plus, because I would have been lost to them had they not stepped in and I can feel them connecting. Sorry. I could feel them. I can feel them stepping in. I'm not sure if you want me to do a channeling, but I definitely need to pause and breathe.
Yeah. So whatever, if, you know, this is your time, if, you know, I was going to ask you, what does that mean that, you know, they're, you know, you're channeling them right now? Like, so maybe you could share whatever they're wanting to communicate, whatever it is that you wanted to share with us here today. The floor is open for you.
Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, I would love to do a channeling. I don't know if people have questions, if you want to do that, or if you want to do it now or after the channeling or during. I don't know.
Well, maybe if you said that they were trying to connect with you, did you hear them say something specifically to you? Maybe you could share that. And if anybody does have any questions, we'd really like to hear your story first before we kind of get into any questions. But at any time, if they're sharing anything that you wanted to say, just let us know whatever it is that, you know, that they're saying to you. That would be great as well. You can always pause what you're saying just to, you know, tell us if they got any messages for us.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. So what they were sharing just now is about creativity and how we are the creators of our own reality. Really, you are creators of your own lives, you are designers. We are the creators, and you are the designers. You are the creators, and you are the designers. All those words are interchangeable. You get to choose. Or you don't. Many people don't recognize that they are creators, and therefore aren't able to see that they are choosing their everyday from the waking moments to the next moments, to the next moments, to the next moments, moment by moment, you are creating everything within your reality. You are far greater than you've been led to believe, and you are creators. You've created everything. You are part of Source, part of God, part of the great I Am. Jesse, we have personal messages that we wish to share, but we don't do it now. We just wanted to say that now is not the time. But you are very connected, let us say, yourself. There are many changes coming to your planet. Thank you. So many of you have Egyptian past lives and Egyptian connections and insights and truths, and so much is unfolding on your planet. There are huge discoveries to be made that will be rediscovered. Lost secrets to do with many of your sacred sites. Egypt, the Sphinx, Antarctica. Let us pause there, because we're veering into more personal messages. So let us pause there. Jesse, perhaps questions? Would you like to do that?
Yeah, well, we still want to continue hearing a little bit more about you and your story. So how did you get into, some of the energy work? Like, obviously you had a kind of a crazy, wild childhood, a lot of traumatic events. I know that a lot of people that I've talked and spoken with that have had severe childhood trauma have checked out of their body and gone to different places. Some people go to see the fairy. Some people go into the walls of the house. Some people go to see Pleiadians. Some people see angels, just to protect themselves from, experiencing what the horrific things that are happening to their body. They leave their body so they don't actually have to feel, that pain as much as they would if they were present at the time that it was happening.
It is so common. It's so common. And so what happens is, through trauma and abuse and shock and situations that shock us, whether they be accidents or devastation or anything that shocks our system, it causes an excess of DMT to be released in the third eye, in the brain, which causes an opening of a door. It opens another level. It opens a psychic awareness, which is not woo-woo. It's scientific, science-based. And then, of course, you get into other areas like quantum physics. And, the woo-woo stuff has been... There's a whole program around the woo-woo stuff and psychic and the mediumship and the ghosts and the esoteric knowledge that's really been hijacked in order to... There's a huge program going on there in order to keep humanity dumbed down and unaware of our own abilities and nature and who we are and where we're really from and why we're here. There's a whole kind of shadow government and black ops and military and secret government that has many, for a long time, has had many projects to keep us from, to keep humanity from knowing itself, really, and our own abilities. And for me, when I left home at 16. I couldn't wait to leave. It wasn't a nice environment for me. It was. Thank you, Susan. It wasn't a nice environment for me. It was very painful emotionally, and also physically sometimes as well. I describe it in my book as being born into hell, because that's how it felt to me at the time. Now, looking back, because I'm 51 now, I see that the huge benefit in the trauma that opened those doors for me through trauma and releasing an excess of DMT, and also leaving my body and connecting in with the Pleiadians. I wouldn't change any of my childhood, as painful as it was. It opened doors for me that I went down, and paths that I wouldn't change. I wouldn't give up for anything. But I can say that now, as a child, I might have given you a different answer, but now, I wouldn't change any of that. So when I left home when I was 16, I was always aware of auras, and I had so many spiritual experiences as a child. I now see it really as a training. It was a training that led me onto the spiritual path, and we choose our parents, we choose our childhoods, we choose our environments, we choose, on a higher level, we choose all of it, our lovers, our partners, our husbands, wives. Yes, it can open so many extra senses for us, including telepathy, and healing abilities, which are also innate within us, but it just can expand all of the esoteric healing and psychic and mediumship and ability to channel. And so anyway, I left home when I was 16, and I think I was around 23 when I discovered I could do healing. My friend had a headache, and I just naturally said to her, let me put my hands on your head. And I did, and her headache was gone within a few minutes. And then I was starting to notice other things as well. And I began to become very involved with the spiritualist church. I was living in Devon at the time, so I began to go to the church a lot and became very involved with that, and was sitting in mediumship circles, and received a lot of training as a medium for those years. I think it was at least 10, maybe 20 years.
What does mediumship training involve?
Lots of meditation. Lots of sitting quiet, sometimes in the dark with a candle, sometimes with the lights on. It doesn't really matter. Although a low light can produce a more relaxed state of being.
I also heard the candle was the flickering of the candle, something about the candle or a flame or something about the fire that helps to create that meditative state.
Yes, it does. The fire actually puts us into a hypnotic state, as does shamanic drumming or drumming and sound and music. different methods to get into an altered mind state or a hypnotic state. But the candle, yes, you're right, Jessie. The candle and music and sound as well. And sorry, I lost track of where I was. Meditation. So meditation is really key. I think I was very blessed actually as a child, because I began meditating at such a young age. And when I look back on my life these days, I can see how it was all meant to, it all fits into place. Everything, you know, the way it all happened and occurred, and the spiritual lessons and teachings that I got, kind of, it was almost as if I pre-planned it, which is very funny. But so then I got involved in the spiritualist church, and then from there I found myself in Edinburgh, living in Edinburgh, which is a beautiful city, and I wanted to go for a retreat. So I was looking at what was around me, and I had started, I think that was in around 2003, 2002. I'm kind of jumping ahead a lot, but I had started to offer readings for donations. Actually, beneath the church in Edinburgh, there used to be, perhaps it's still there, there used to be a cafe that was owned by the church, but they rented it out. So I was there for a short while until they asked me to leave, where I would be offering readings. And there was a little corridor in between the cafe and the bathrooms or the toilets. And it was a little corridor where there was a lot of people would sell their items there, like artwork and ceramics and things. And it was an empty space. There was no one else there. So I asked them if I could use that area, and I did, and I began to give readings. And then I wanted to go on to a retreat for myself. So I decided, I had a look around, and I found this Buddhist retreat in off the Isle of Arran, called Holy Island, which is a Buddhist retreat center. So I went for a 2 weeks holiday, and I ended up staying 2 years. Beautiful people, beautiful space, beautiful island. Everything was just, it was a different energy. I really found where I fitted in for that time, at least. Because I now have a different view with some of the things that the Dalai Lama has been reported in doing. I have a different understanding now of Buddhism and wouldn't choose that. Now I have a different understanding. So I still would have chosen that, but with the Buddhists at the time, it was where I fitted in, and I never really fitted in before. I never felt like I belonged or fitted in, or I always stood out and was seen. My energy has often been seen as, or I've been perceived very negatively sometimes. For example, I was very bullied at school, and the teachers didn't like me, and I was also bullied by the teachers and the children. So, and that is very much a characteristic of being a starseed, is when you stand out unintentionally. People are also drawn to your energy. So I found myself on this little tiny island called Holy Island off the west of Scotland. And I went for 2 weeks, and I was there for 2 years. And it was just beautiful. It really, I honestly, I would have said I was very angry when I got to the island. And I was the Buddhists are very non-judgmental. The majority of the time. So I was really I had all this anger from my childhood. Like, I was so angry. was angry at my mum. I was angry at my family. I was angry at the situation. I was angry at the rape. I was angry at my stepfather. I was angry with so many men because it was, you know, it was several times by several different men. So I had all this anger, and I wasn't. I guess I wasn't a very nice person at the time. I was reacting to my own anger and projecting that onto everyone for so long. But the island really gave me. I did a lot. I went back into meditation during the island while I was there, and really cleared a lot of my own anger and frustration and annoyance and self-judgment and a lot of energy I was holding on to. Really released a lot of stuff there. And then when I left there, down the line, I got involved into shamanism.
And you said that was Holy Island. Did you say Holy Island?
Holy Island, yes. Holy. Holy Island in Scotland. And there's Holy, Holy.
Okay, it sounded like it was definitely a holy experience for you if you were able to go in there angry and come out much more peaceful.
Yes, it was. The Buddhists are amazing people, really beautiful souls who are, I found them to be very unjudgmental, and they just, they're great meditators, you know, and they're great at not taking on other people's projections, just letting them be. And they really just let me be, which is what I needed to work through my own anger, and my own kind of the residue of energetic residue of the childhood that I'd had.
And so after you left Holy Island, then you said I think you got into shamanism. And maybe you can tell us what that is and how you got into that.
So from Holy Island, I wanted to stay within the Buddhist community, but I wanted to leave Holy Island. I wanted to spread my wings a bit and experience something new. Because I was living on an island with no traffic, no shops. I think it took about an hour, 3 hours to walk around completely. So there was nothing there, just beautiful energy, beautiful space. And so I wanted to leave, but I didn't want to leave the Buddhist community. And they had a sister charity in Nepal. So I applied for that and applied as a volunteer. So I went and did that. And then I ended up marrying. And I was there for a lot longer than I had planned. I think I was there in Nepal for about a year, and I'd only planned on 3 months. Or perhaps it was shorter than that. But anyway, I ended up marrying a monk, and Tibetan monk, and we moved to London, Enfield. We stayed with my auntie for a while. And then 2 years into the marriage, I was very depressed, very unhappy. This was not someone that I wanted to be around, spend any more time. And I felt very, I felt that I had to leave him, which I did. And I was very depressed at the time. It was very unhappy time for both of us. Neither of us were very happy. And I began to automatic write around that time. And I'd actually met up with him because I was clearing a past life with him that was kind of similar. That didn't end well for me. So I had started due to the being so unhappy and the depression and all of that, I started to automatic write. and I didn't really realize, I didn't know where it was coming from at the time. But so I left him and I moved to Ireland, and I had a very bad back at the time. I was bedridden, which was to do with the past life with him, where I died. I'm not sure if I was murdered or if I just died and passed away, or if I killed myself. I'm not sure in that lifetime, but it didn't end well. So I knew if I stayed within the marriage, I knew that my back was so bad that if I had have stayed, that I would have ended up dying in the room, because I was bedridden, completely bedridden, unable to, my body wasn't able to, my back wasn't able to support my body. I wasn't able to stand up, and I was in extreme amount of pain. And seconds and minutes can feel so much longer when you're in a lot of pain. So the time felt very slow to me and dragging, and I knew I had to leave or I would die in that situation, given what I was seeing about the past life. So I called my auntie. She was living in Ireland, and Auntie Anne, and I called her and I told her what was going on, because when we had originally moved back to London, we had stayed with her for a while, so she knew the situation and she knew us and she knew what was going on. She knew the kind of the energy and the dynamics, and she said, just leave him, just come to Ireland. So that's what I did, and I literally had to drag myself out of the bed, and I couldn't walk. I didn't know how I was going to get to Ireland, and anyway, I managed to crawl myself to Ireland. I got the coach and I paid someone because they wouldn't move the seats. They were travellers, and they were sitting on the back seats of the coach and they wouldn't move. And I thought if I lay down, at least I would get some type of relief. So I paid them €20 to move because they wouldn't move. And then I lay down and just stretched out on the back seats of the coach, and slept. And it was crippling agony, really crippling agony, to have to force myself to move from and stand up, and just extreme pain, and not being able to walk is very like, you can't do anything. You can't cook, you can't clean yourself, you can't go to the toilet, you can't do any of the basic things, you can't cook, you can't eat, because you can't sit up, you can't get water. And they had gone on holiday when I had left. They left me in that situation and gone to Germany for a holiday. So it was a prime opportunity for me to leave. So that's what I did. And I had just already started to automatic write during that time to kind of help with the depression that I was feeling. And so when I I left and I went to Ireland, and I stayed with my auntie for a while, and gradually my back began to heal little by little. I went from the back coach, not being able to walk, to being able to walk a little bit. And then I went to the hospital in Ireland because I wasn't being helped in England. But the doctor had just said that I had arthritis and that she couldn't do anything. So then when I was in Ireland, that was my first port of call, was to get my body back into good condition and to be pain-free and to be able to walk again. So I did. And the first thing they did was give me medication to knock me out. And then they ran some x-rays and tests and things like that. And I think I had 2 slip discs. And so over the weeks, I went from a walking frame for an elderly person. I went from that to 2 crutches, and then to 1 crutch. And then I was due to go in for a an ultra scan on my back, and I couldn't do it because of my childhood left me with a fear of anything around my head. I can't stand it. I not even polar necks. I can't wear polar necks or anything like that because I can't stand the restriction around my head.
Like a motorcycle helmet's a no-no.
Sorry?
A motorcycle helmet would be like a no-no.
Yeah, no, I can't do anything like that. No helmets, nothing. Yeah, I can't stand the restriction. Even horse riding helmets or anything. It sounds strange, but I can't stand anything restriction around my head or my mouth even. So, and my neck especially. So I wasn't able to go into the machine, into the ultrasounds, into the scanning machine. So I didn't know how I was going to do that, and I was due for the appointment, and I was going into the it was a kind of a makeshift cabin that they'd set up that had the machines in, and my guides turned up and said to me, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." So then I knew I was okay to not have the test done because I just couldn't go in. And I actually started crying because I was with the nurse and all these memories came back, and I said, I just can't do this. And I explained to her why. So then she sat me down for a few minutes because I was very tearful and crying because the memory started to come back of why I couldn't do this. And so then I left, and my guide said, don't worry, your body's going to heal itself from now on, which it did. And so I went from, like I was saying, the walking, what do you call those things? The Zimmer frame, the walking frames that elderly people have, then to 2 crutches, to 1 crutch, and then gradually no crutches. And so then I found a house in Lewisburg in Mayo, and I had started to write my book, The Pleiadian Child, and it was a beautiful rural place, and I was in a very good space at the time. My body was healed. I was away from my ex-husband, and also I have to add, when I left him, I felt like I needed to leave the whole Buddhist community because I was very involved in the community, in that particular Holy Island community, and I had almost become a nun, but I chose not to. So I chose to go to Nepal instead and volunteer. So I found myself living in a beautiful part of Ireland, Lewisburg in Mayo, which was quite a rundown house, very large, but it was a minute from the beach, and it had a beautiful view from the lounge, from the large lounge windows. There were huge windows. They kind of covered the whole wall of the lounge, and it was very open plan. So you had the lounge in the middle, and then the kitchen, and then to the left of the lounge there was another kind of open plan sitting area. So it was a very large house, very run down, but beautiful area, and a big house, lots of space. And I was sent an email. So I'd already started to write the Pleiadian Child book, which was to do with my childhood memories. And then I was sent during this process, and also as I was writing the Pleiadian Child, I had to go back and remember different situations that I'd experienced because I'd forgotten a lot of it. But also during shamanic training, I started to remember a lot of missing memories as well from childhood. So I found myself in this house in Lewisburg, beautiful, just beautiful. The energies there are places in Ireland where there is very strong Pleiadian energy, and this was one of Lewisburg in Mayo, and also Carramore as well, which is a stone circle area, well known for having Pleiadian energy. So I was sent an email by a guy who I thought it was a bit crazy, saying that he had received my name and that from the Pleiadians, and that we should work together. And my reply back was, that's great, thank you very much, and thanks for letting me know. And I didn't say much else. But this person is, I thought he was a little bit cracked, as they say in Ireland, a little bit crazy, and it turns out he wasn't. And he's actually very well known, a public, very well known person who I'll mention in a minute. But initially, I just thought he was crazy, and I was very polite. I've always been quite diplomatic with people as much as I can be, because it's never my intention to hurt anyone through my voice or actions or energy. So I replied back in the nicest way I could, and then I realized he wasn't so crazy. I realized because I started to, once he sent me that email, I started to channel the Pleiadians. They turned up, Ashtar turned up behind me, and because of all my training as a child and mediumship abilities, I was able to see them very physically, as clear as I can see you. And Ashtar turned up, and the Pleiadian collective behind him, and he said, "Hello, my name is Ashtar. I'm Ashtar Commander, Pleiadian, Ashtar Commander." So then I realized that this man wasn't so crazy after all, that he actually was very guided. And his name is Joshua Shapiro, who is the Crystal Skull Explorer. So that's kind of how I began to channel them consciously. And then I began to do, so when they turned up like that, I began to take dictation, literally dictation. Because of all the mediumship training I'd had, I was able to do that. And telepathically, and I couldn't type quick enough. You know, they were speaking so fast and so quickly. I literally thought I was making lots of spelling mistakes. I was kind of going 10 to the dozen on the keyboard, just automatic, not even looking at the keyboard, just typing away what they were saying word for word. So that is also in my book, The Pleiadian Child, because I was, at the same time, I was writing about my childhood. So my book, the first book, The Pleiadian Child, my first book, The Pleiadian Child, is in 3 sections, where there's a section of my childhood, and then the Pleiadian channelings, and then at the end there's also a section of the present day of what I was going through at the time. And then I began to I decided I really wanted to go into shamanism and learn some of that. So I went from spiritualism to Buddhism to shamanism. I don't think I would go into anything else. Those are kind of what have always resonated with me, and these days not so much spiritualism or Buddhism, but more shamanic. I still feel the shamanic pull, very much so, and I think that's probably past life memories of being in Native America, past life as a Lakota, and having a lifetime with my guide, who I was married to, who I was his wife in that lifetime. But anyway, so I got into shamanism in Ireland. I found a really good shaman called Paul O'Halloran, who still teaches in Ireland, I believe, in Galway. And I moved to Galway to begin my shamanic training, and that was for 2 or 3 years, I think. And then it was during those weekends and ayahuasca and shamanic journeys that I began to have memories of having connected to the Pleiadians as a child, which is also in my book. I continued to write the book as I progressed. Information was added to the book. So, and then during one in particular shamanic journey, I was shown a very profound experience. I've had many profound experiences over the years since I was a child, but there are particular ones that are life-changing for me, really life-changing, like the one when I was 12, where Jesus stopped me from committing suicide. And so this experience, when I was laying on the floor and we were having shamanic journeys, and there was drumming and chanting, the CD was on for chanting, and we were doing ayahuasca. It was just so profound. So again, during this experience, I left my body and I was taken up and out, and I was looking at the universe and the night sky and the stars and the planets and the sun and the moon, and I was just up there looking at all of it in wonder, a real sense of wonder. And my guide was with me. I remember him being on my left many moons, and I was taken on a journey, and I was shown that I am from the Pleiadian star system, and that I'm a hybrid, and part of my mission this lifetime is to channel the Pleiadians and to bring and to share that information with people, with humanity, so. And that's what I'm doing today. That's.
Now, you mentioned, kind of being a part of this spiritual church, and you were doing readings in the corridor. You had mentioned you had your experience with Jesus. You've got into shamanism and things like that. How is that, worked between church and some of the spiritual side? Because it seems like anybody that's doing anything out of the church's box is labeled as a heretic, and and it seems like you've been guided, even experienced with Jesus Christ himself, and but you've taken down this road. Have you felt much pushback when it comes to the church and the things that you're doing, maybe not being okay with people that are very, still in that, box that they're put into?
My mum was Catholic, so I grew up in the very loosely in the Catholic Church. I mean, she was an addict. She was an alcoholic. And she was divorced, but she was very loose. She was very wild, and very crazy village girl, that Irish village girl that was kind of ran wild. So we were very loosely Catholics. We weren't. I went through a period when I was 7, 8, 9. Where I was getting a lot of messages, I believe, at the time, looking back on it now in perspective, at the time, from Jesus. And so I would be sharing a lot of this, and at some point the Spirit stepped in and said, you have to stop talking now, because people are starting to look at you, and they're really looking at you in a very questioning way, and you have to stop talking about spirit. You have to stop saying what we are, the information that we're giving you, You have to stop because you will be locked up. So I stopped talking about everything. I stopped talking about spirits. I actually ended up taking my mum to church every Sunday because I found some peace in it. And I did go to Sunday school for a while. Now I have a very different perspective of the Catholic Church. But when I was doing readings in beneath the church in the cafe area, the cafe area was owned by the church, who were renting it out to an independent people or peoples, and so they didn't have a complete say, but they definitely had a very strong influence. So they, from what I gathered at the time, they had spoken to the people of the cafe, and then the people in the cafe had asked me to stop. To stop. They said I couldn't continue there. There wasn't space for me. They didn't want me there. I wasn't able to do that anymore. So I understood what was going on with that. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll leave, and I found another place. My understanding of Jesus, who I have a very personal connection to, is very different to the Jesus that is given to us in the Bible and also by the Catholic Christian Church.
You mean the one that looks like Caesar Borgia?
Yes, that one. Yeah. Because the Jesus that turned up that I saw, that was very real, had darker skin, long hair and long beard, white robes, was an advanced soul, but he wasn't pale skinned, blonde hair. He was darker, Mediterranean type skin, and a beautiful presence. So my understanding now with where I am with that is that the Catholic Church is part of the negative agenda in a huge way, and they've instigated many
atrocities.
Thank you, Jesse. Yes, atrocities down throughout the ages that began at the downfall of Atlantis. And the reason I say that is because I've been shown that all systems on Earth are run at the highest level by negative ET energy. And I put the church in with that group. I put the Illuminati in with that group. I put the cabal, the politicians. All systems on Earth are run by negative ET energy. So I put, and the church is a huge part of that. And then you've also got the satanic rituals and things that are going on with the Catholic Church, and there's all of that stuff. We've been lied to on such a mass scale about who we are, where we're from, our true history. So there's been a war between light and dark since the downfall of Atlantis, and we've been tracked and traced from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime since the downfall of Atlantis. We've been tracked and traced using technology that has been placed in our bodies on a higher dimension. So on a higher dimension, there's technology that is used and placed into our bodies, very physically, where we've gone both by the negative and positive ET races in order to track and trace us, so they can know our whereabouts and everything, and who we are, our missions, really, because at the downfall of Atlantis, it was caused by negative ET energies that overthrew Atlantis. And since then, we've been preparing for this lifetime, but we have, at the same time, we've been tracked and traced from lifetime to lifetime. So we have been all sacred people, which is why they have been tracked, and which is why they've been targeted so much. So the Native Americans, the Aborigine, the Maori, the Celtic, the African, the Indian, all the sacred people have been tracked and traced from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, because they were the Atlanteans. They were us, and we are here to so at the time of Atlantis, we didn't evolve, we devolved, and our DNA was changed. So now we're here to, as a second chance, you could say, to evolve and do what we didn't get to do, or didn't choose to do at the time of Atlantis and the downfall. So now we're here to correct things. I know I had a lifetime in Atlantis where I made mistakes and chose paths that I wouldn't choose again for myself in that lifetime. So we're here to make corrections to the wrong choices or the bad mistakes. Having said that, I also believe that there are no mistakes and wrong choices. So, and one of the things is that I see very clearly is that my childhood, through the trauma and all of that negative dysfunction and abuse and rape, I even became, due to the rape, I even became pregnant at the age of 12. And I was raped by my cousin. So all of that negative stuff, I can see a parallel with that began in 2019 with COVID and everything that kicked off. I can see a parallel of how all the negative trauma and everything can actually help to wake us up. And I can see that very much in my childhood. And then when COVID kicked in, I could see that happening in the collective, through trauma, through things being brought into our daily lives that were being forced upon us. The trauma being forced upon us was helping actually to help to wake people up. That is not the negative agenda's intention, but this was happening and is happening as part of a natural process of evolution. It is through the trauma and all of that negative agenda that we are raising up and have the ability to raise our frequency, to assist humanity, in raising humanity's frequency. So there's so much going on.
I've heard some people say that Jesus Christ is the leader of the Ashtar Command, and I know you've mentioned, you've met Jesus, and you've met, kind of Ashtar. Is there any synergy between the two?
Absolutely. It's no coincidence that I have a very strong connection with, in the extreme, with the Ashtar and the Pleiadians, and also Jesus. They are Jesus. I was shown during my shamanic training that Jesus is Pleiadian, was Pleiadian, and that's one of my reasons why I believe that the Catholic Church, there's many different aspects going on there, but I don't believe the Church. I should really stop using the word belief, because it's not a belief. It's a deep, profound awareness.
It's a knowing.
Yeah. It's a knowing. Exactly. Thank you, Jesse. It's a knowing that everything we've been taught which is also why I was kept out of the school system. And it's ironic when I look back on my life and the experiences of not having the school system and the experience with Jesus and the Pleiadians, and it's almost like I'm just following this path of Hansel and Gretel and picking up the breadcrumbs, and it's a path that I've laid out for myself, and I'm very much against is the wrong word, but I'm very much a truther, especially when it comes to the Catholic Church. I'm sure there are good people in that system and in all systems, but the Catholic Church has been cathartic in instigating so many mass deaths in our history, from including the Native Americans, including the witches and the drownings and the burnings and so many, the Dark Ages, as well, and atrocities. Just then they're inhumane. They are ET.
Well, they get that. Yeah, they get that from scripture because, people feel that if you think someone is your enemy and they're maybe of a darkness, that it's okay to murder their women and children and babies. And this is like in scripture. So, it's really bizarre, but people tend to mimic the God that they believe in. And if they believe that God would kill babies because they were born to someone that may oppose them, then that's justifiable. And that is sick and twisted. And that's not how things were supposed to be here.
No, it's not. We at the down. Thank you, Jesse. That's beautiful what you said. At the downfall of Atlantis, we were invaded. We were invaded by a negative race of ET species. We were invaded, and our awareness, our energy was much higher at the time. We were more evolved than we are today. Our awareness, our telepathy, our healing, our abilities, our understanding, we daily would be channeling, all of us would be channeling and connecting into the Galactics, like the Pleiadians and Syrians and Lyrans, thank you, and others. We were more evolved. Our DNA was higher, was unchanged. That was before they changed our DNA in order to control and manipulate us. And ever since the downfall of Atlantis, we've been on this journey of there was a contract drawn up at the downfall of Atlantis where with positive and negative ET races, where they were given ownership of humanity and the earth for a certain amount of period, and that for a certain time period, and that contract has now come to an end and has been torn up. And there's other aspects that are important as well, such as I think it's the 25 or 26,000 years period, which is also an aspect of the Great Awakening of humanity. But also they often call it the Atlantis reversal, or the reversal of Atlantis, where we're on a parallel timeline to the downfall of Atlantis, and now we get to choose a higher state of being. So what's happening is we're actually jumping back to Atlantis, but then we're jumping forward as well. So we kind of a hop, skip and jump, where we're moving back into, and that's why so many of us are remembering Atlantis and what happened in our past lives and becoming much more aware. And then we're jumping into a higher timeline. And part of the reason for that is that the Great Ascension and the Great Reset, which is a positive phrase that has also been hijacked by the negative agenda, The Great Reset is not limited, the evolution of humanity is not limited to Earth. It is evolution of everything in the universe. It's an evolution of all species that includes the Pleiadians and Sirians and Lyrans and thousands of others. So everything is evolving within the universe, including the planets, the suns, the moons, the stars. All species, all life is on a trajectory of evolution, and humanity is physically on the turning into becoming a crystalline human being. I'm so glad this is a 2-hour
in depth. We kind of go in depth here. What do you know about the island of Mu? Apparently, maybe it was at the time of Atlantis, but there was a time called the island of Mu, which some people think maybe Lemuria was the island of Mu, and it was kind of maybe around that time that Atlantis here was another, kind of place, another maybe race of people, Lemurians, Atlanteans. Maybe they were different people, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about the island of Mu if you know about it.
Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, it's actually really lovely that it's a 2-hour. Normally it's an hour, and you just sometimes you get to cover the basics, if that. But this is really nice to go deeper, and I'd love to do this again if possible. So one of the things with me is that I never believe anything that anyone says to me, or something that I read. I always want to get it from the Pleiadians. So the weatherman could tell me it's raining outside, and I it would be falling on deaf ears. I've such a disbelief, actually, of disbelief of what I read and see on the media, that it makes no sense. It's nonsense. So I never believe anything.
Well, we've been lied to so much that it's not surprising that it's hard to believe anything when all we see is, lies everywhere.
It goes so deep, it's beyond belief. Like the negative agendas, control and manipulation. I fully understand why people don't believe what the truth, and the truth is, and the conspiracy theorists, there's a great poster that I don't know what's called, but it's full of circles, and you've got the titles of all the different aspects of what's really going on, and it's just huge. It's enormous. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know what it's called, but have you seen it?
Yeah, the map of everything, how everything is interconnected.
Yes, I think that's what it is. Yeah, and there's thousands of things on it. So. Okay, so you were asking about
Lemuria, the island
Lemuria. So what the Pleiadians have said to me, which is why I was saying I don't believe anything unless they say it, and I even do question them still with certain things. What they've shown me is that there was a period before Atlantis called Lemuria, and I understand that as being. I've seen beneath Mount Shasta, where there are these beings living today that are beneath Mount Shasta. So I believe that was part of Lemuria, that area. And I believe that's a very sacred area. And that's what I've been shown. I've also been shown that because of that, there are still crafts that come in above Mount Shasta. And that area is it has a sacred energy to it. So I don't know if that was the original Lemuria or if they moved there. But there are beings there that are Lemurian. That is what I would say. I don't know much else about Lemuria other than that it was a period or a time before Atlantis, similar to Atlantis, where there was a group of of more evolved beings than we are now, preceding Atlantis, preceding us, preceding Atlantis.
I'm not sure if you know who Alice Bailey is, but apparently it was written in 1919 that a big day is the golden age is supposed to start on March 21st, 2025. And that is just over a month from now. And I'm wondering if, you've heard anything or felt anything about potentially something major shift happening on March 21st, 2025.
I haven't heard anything about that date, but wasn't Alice Bailey into the satanic things?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't delved too deep into it. We've had some people come on here and talk a little bit about Alice Bailey and the occult, and channeling, certain entities, and things like that. So apparently, the Alice Bailey said that the people could wake themselves up and get out from some kind and get into the golden age, or it's going to, if they don't, then it's going to be a lot more trauma. And apparently March 21st is potentially a big date that's, in like a week and 4 days, or a month and 4 days. So that's a potential timeline date that someone predicted, over 100 years ago. And these occultists, they follow these dates, they follow these predictions. I think they're using the Bible as a playbook, opposed to it being prophesized to happen. They're trying to make this stuff, happen, this chaos. Their motto is order out of chaos. So they're trying to create the chaos so they can come in as the order for it. So, it wouldn't be surprising if this date, something does come to pass on it.
I don't have a good feeling about Alice Bailey. I don't know that much, but I don't get a good feeling with that name. The Bible has been rewritten, manipulated as an official document to mislead us. There are many truths in the Bible, but it has been changed. Reincarnation, for example, was taken out by the Catholic Church because they didn't want us to know the truth, some of the truth about ourselves. So with the important dates, we're already in the golden age. We're in it. I think there are important dates. I don't know if March the 21st is important. I kind of feel it must be. It must be. But let me write that down, because I might ask the Pleiadians about that during the channeling. What they have said is that the 6 month, and they've said it repeatedly for the last year, roughly, that the 6 month is very important this year. That there's some event or situation that will happen in the 6 months, which is June. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. Normally, when they predict, they very rarely predict situations. They often predict weather occurrences with me. So that for me, they predicted Hurricane Helena a week or two before, or maybe 3 before it happened, or even a few days. So, which is recorded.
Why do you think they do that with the weather, just to kind of warn you?
I think they're trying to help. I think they're trying to help, and to to let people know of what's coming. I mean, if there's a tsunami coming, that's the type of information we need to know now. So they often do step in, and but I've had that as a child. I've had weather predictions since I was a little girl. So they've often said that to me, although I didn't know who it was them at the time. But with the weather predictions, yeah, if there's a body of water or there's some devastating weather, man-made or ET-made weather situation coming, we need to know about that. So, because it gives us time to get away from that area, or it gives us time to prepare at least for hurricanes or tsunamis or earthquakes. Weather manipulation, exactly. Thank you, Dale. Would it be okay to answer some questions? There's so many questions.
Yeah. If anybody does have any questions, please share them now. I wanted to ask you. You've mentioned Pleiadians. You mentioned kind of the Pleiades. Could you maybe tell us what you think the Pleiadians and the Pleiades are?
They are a group of positive, loving, evolved ET beings. So the universe is teeming with life. There are thousands of species of ET races who create, and one of them, so they are all creators. So they've created life. They've created humanity. The Pleiadians created humanity, in my understanding. And that is what I've been shown. And that also other races, such as Syrians and Lyrans, and also this would include the reptilian races, have engineered, created life forms on our planet and other planets, which is why the universe is teeming with life. We are not from Earth. We being humans, or not even humans, but hybrids, Pleiadian hybrids, Syrian hybrids, Lyran hybrids, or Lyrian. We are a multitude of. We've had lifetimes not just on Pleiades, but as starseeds, not just the Pleiadians, but Lyra, Syria, and other places that we've never even heard of. There used to be life on Mars, and we've been lied to on a mass scale since the downfall of Atlantis, when reptilian, let's call it reptilian, or negative ET energy overthrew the Atlanteans, overthrew Earth, in order to control and own the Earth, because they lost their home. There was some type of war or destruction or devastation that occurred to their planet, and so they landed here. They invaded Atlantis and overthrew, and ever since then we've been on a trajectory period of another evolutionary period, which is what we're going through.
How do you think the Anunnaki fit into all of this?
I would say they're part of that.
Part of the overthrowing? Like, you think they're part of the reptilians?
I'm not 100% sure, and I should know, so forgive me, because I don't. I take what I read with a pinch of salt these days. So, there's Anunnaki, there's reptilian, there's varying hybrids and degrees of those, like there are of Pleiadian and Syrian and Lyran. We are a multitude of species and races, and there is good and bad within all of those. I would say absolutely, Linda. So the Anunnaki and the Greys as well, and the there's two different versions of Greys at least. And then there's also the military black ops, which disguise themselves as
I think you froze there for a second. I think you're frozen right now. Is she frozen for everybody or just me?
oh no, okay.
Oh, I think you're. I think you
So
froze there. It looks like you're back.
okay, I was just bilocating.
Maybe with our last half an hour, you maybe want to get into some channeling, some questions. I'm not sure if you want to maybe ask them about March 21st. I'm open if they have anything that they want to share to me. You can share it publicly. I'm not opposed to that at all.
Yes, okay, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, so how about we do some questions, and then I might get into the zone a bit more.
Yeah, no questions have popped up yet, but does anybody have any questions for Soma ARah? Now, what do you think your purpose? I think you said to share about the Pleiades. You think that like what you're doing right now is fulfilling your purpose?
Yes, I do. I do, and it's been very progressive for me, especially since 2019. Very progressive, sometimes on a daily basis, and the way they work with me has changed, or not. It's changed a lot, but they go through phases where they will work with me in a different way. For example, I was doing an interview back in 2020, and it was with a lady in Australia, and Ashtar was to my right, next to me, and the Pleiadian collective as well. And he said he said to me during this live interview to close my eyes, so I did, and I was meant to just do a channeling, and but he asked me to close my eyes, so I did, and then he stepped into my body and began to use my voice in a which is called trans voice channeling, which is a specific thing. So that's called trans voice channeling, which is a specific thing. And so they go through phases of using me in different ways. I when I began consciously after getting the email from Joshua, I was just literally taking dictation and typing what they said word for word telepathically. And then they also then there's the channeling that I do weekly. And then there's also the dream time, and so they have worked with me in different ways. So one of the greatest things that they've ever really shared with me is that we've been lied to on such a mass scale about everything, and that every system is run by negative ET energy. It took me like a good 1 to 3 years to really get that, to really understand it. It's okay to hear the words, but to really understand that
Are we those positive beings that, you know, counter the negative system?
Absolutely. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're not just here as starseeds or, you know, we're here for this specific time, which is the great awakening of humanity, and to assist humanity on a grand scale. And you were asking about my mission, which is actually tied into what's happening on Earth. So many of us have similar missions, which is why in 2019, 2020, we began to pick up our microphones and our laptops and our phones and become much more public. Had it not been for that negative invasion of what was being put into our society on a daily basis, and we were given orders of what to do with our bodies. Had it not been for that, so many people would have sat back. So there is a positive. Like we stood up at that time, and we continue to stand up, and we are gathering in numbers. We've reached the tipping point of there's a tipping point with the spiritual and the negative war, where when we reach a certain high peak or a mass in numbers, that it can't fall back, you know, without the negative kind of, it's a balancing act. So we've outweighed the tipping point of us falling back now. Now it's just about us gathering and gathering momentum. And my mission is very similar to thousands of other starseeds. You know, we've come en masse. We all have similar missions. We are as unique as our individual fingerprints, but we do have very similar missions, which is to share the truth of who we are, why we're here, where we're from, to stop the deception of lies and manipulation. And some of us are doing that on a grand scale with the likes of Greg Braden, and also to add, so many of us have been infiltrated, such as the Dalai Lama, which is why I've also, you know, have a different perspective now of Buddhism. And there are very negative agencies, especially in America, not exclusively in America, but very negative agencies that do not have our best interests at heart, that do use technology in a negative way,
and they infiltrate any movement, any group, anything that's getting headway or traction. They look to infiltrate it, to corrupt it, and, you know, to get it back more to that darker, you know, timeline. And it seems like that happens over and over and over.
It does. It's a repetitive program that they're running. They've done it again and again and again. You know, they did it with Atlantis. And they're trying to recreate the same thing, except now I was doing a channeling last night on another interview with Sheila Seppi, and what came through last night is that, so for a while the Pleiadians have been saying that there are, and this is new information for me as well, but for the last, I guess, 6 months, they've been saying that there are specific DNA codes that have been put into place by the Pleiadians and other similar positive ET races. There are specific DNA codes that have been put into place, into starseeds, that will activate at a certain time in the future. One of them has already been activated, which is called a grounding code. These are specific codes that have been put into us as starseeds, which weren't there. We didn't have those codes in our DNA at the time of Atlantis, which is one of the reasons we didn't choose to evolve in Atlantis, because we didn't have this extra set of codes. So now we have these extra set of codes that the likes of the Pleiadians and Syrians and Lyrans, thank you, put into our DNA. These are very specific codes that will be activated at some point in the future. The one I know, and I don't know what these codes are, I haven't been shown yet, but the one code I have been shown is about the grounding code that has been placed into Starseed's DNA to help assist us in overcoming and overthrowing the negative agenda. Is to do with grounding. They call it a grounding code, and it's a code where when we go onto the earth, when we lay our bellies on the earth and even place our feet, but more specifically when we lay our bellies on the earth, thank you, and there's a Native American influence here as well to do with this code. But when we lay our bellies on the earth, the information that we encode, when these codes are activated within us, these codes are activating the earth. So the energy runs through this code. It runs from the galactics, and it runs down in a spiral, and it runs down through our lower back, and then our stomach, and then it runs into the earth. And this code helps to ground in very specifically, very solidly, very physically, on an energetic level. It helps to ground in the higher energies into the earth, which helps to wake the Mother Earth up and to raise her frequency and her vibration. And that energy spreads out from the core of the earth and back up to the earth. So it runs down. Thank you. It runs down to the energy, runs from our belly to the core of the earth, and then back up again into a spiral. So that is a very specific code. When I work with them these days, I hear them telepathically, and I see them next to me and surrounding me. And I also get images, which I've probably always had as a child. I always worked in that way, where I would get images which contain simultaneously, as well as the telepathic, contains an image can contain 1,000 words. So sometimes most of the time actually, I get those. I work with those transmissions in that way. So the images I see can contain more information than the images I see can contain more information than the telepathic downloads.
When I hug a tree, I feel like my feet, I take like my shoe off and I put my feet to the tree, and I feel like I'm connecting through the mycelium network, through the roots, that I'm like actually connecting to the earth. But I find it fascinating that you say about laying on your belly, because your belly button is like a portal into you. And if you lay with your belly button on the earth, connecting through the belly into the earth, I think that is pretty fascinating. And I'm excited about trying that, in the near future.
Yes. And we have it's amazing what you said. And yeah, it's so simple. Like, it boggles me that we've been lied to on such a mass scale, and yet people are unwilling to believe. Some people are unwilling to believe very simple things, such as spirit is real, and we have healing ability, and trees are alive and connected through their roots, like us. And you know, when you do that, when you connect in with trees, trees have memory of us, of the earth, of our history, and are able to communicate with us. So we have the ability to gain information from plants and from trees, sometimes very telepathically. And the natives were very aware of very sacred people that were very aware
of source, the spirit, the great spirit, the energy, the plant medicines, you know, just the communicate, the camaraderie. Like, they were so aware, and I think that's one of the reasons why they were targeted so much, because they didn't want people to be aware of that connection to a great source. You know, they didn't want people to be aware that, you know, you can get real medicine through plants and not through this synthetic junk that they're selling them. You know, and I think that's some of the reasons why they were targeted so much. And plus, that apparently their blood was very coveted as well.
Yes, and they did have a direct connection to the Pleiadians, and then that comes down through a lot of their oral tradition.
It's kind of snowy and cold right now. It's been really cold. Are you degrees? Or are you Fahrenheit? Are you Celsius or Fahrenheit?
Well, degrees.
Celsius?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been like minus 30 here for the last, you know, few weeks, maybe a month. And it's just warmed up, and I think it's +3 right now. So it's above freezing, but there's still lots of snow out there. So that's why Linda's saying that there's no bare belly grounding in the snow right now, because it's maybe just still a little bit wee cold. That's why I said in the near future, and I wouldn't be going and laying out on the ground as of yet.
Where are you?
In Alberta, Canada.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah. Now, we did have a couple questions here. Linda says, are or can we be a combination of them all? Octurian,
Yes.
Pleiadian, Lyran. Could you be like a Heinz 57 and be mixed with a whole bunch?
Yes, we are. I initially I had thought that I was just Pleiadian, because I feel such a connection and a resonance, and are able to channel them in the way that I do. I didn't realize that I was also Lyran, and someone told me that during an interview. Actually, it was Susan Long. Some people will know of Susan, but she was, during an interview, she told me that I was part Lyran, which I wasn't really aware of, although it did ring bells. But yeah, we are Heinz 57. We've lived, you know, we're ancient souls that have lived everywhere, and we're not from Earth. So it would make sense that we're kind of like travelers of the galaxy, of the universe, where we've lived everywhere. We've been everything. We've been both positive and negative. Yeah.
So maybe you wanted to ask them about March 21st, if that's a big date that's coming up. Maybe you wanted to see if they have any answers for us.
It's something I will ask in a channeling session. I probably won't do it now.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else that you wanted to share with us here today that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
I'm just going to take a note. Yes, there is. Would you like me to do a channeling and ask them about the 21st?
Yeah, that would be amazing if you could.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is a graph with that date being sky high. So so it's off the charts, that energy on that day. I'm also getting a strong. Let me see if I can go deeper with it.
Any alien invasion or anything on the 21st?
We've already been invaded. We were invaded at the downfall of Atlantis. But I'm kind of making a joke of it there, but
on the televisions, I mean, like an actual attack on the cities, and apparently 2025 is when they wanted to unleash whether a real or fake alien invasion, and I'm just wondering if that may coincide with the 21st of some kind of an attack where this is televised and then the world wakes up to, you know, more out there than, you know, they've been programmed to believe.
I do have some important information about what you're saying. So back, I think it was last year, there was a landing in Florida that was real, where there were hundreds of cop cars. It was in a mall, I think.
Shopping mall in Florida, yeah.
Yes. So and this is all documented, it's all recorded. When I channel, I record everything. So they had in a channeling, they had said that would happen, and they told me in a channeling it came through about 2 or 3 or maybe 4 weeks before that actually physically happened in Florida. They said there would be a landing in Florida. I have documented it. It's recorded, so it's out there, it's public. They said that would happen. What they've also said is that there will be real landings and there will be fake landings. The fake ones will be highlighted and made big issues of on media, news media and social media. Thank you. And that the real ones will kind of be swept under the carpet, pushed over to the side. Nothing to see here. Look at this one. There is tremendous technology that we are not aware of, that is being used in a negative and positive way. Things can appear in the sky that look very real, but they're not real at all. There's I forget the word for them now, but
Project Bluebeam.
Thank you. Yes, and also with the technology that is to do with the roofs and the beams of technology used in a negative way. Where if you paint your roof blue, you're safe. So yes, that they so and anyone that wants to check that out, if they look back at when because I do forget the dates now of when the landing happened in the Florida Mall. If you look 2, 3, and 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks at my YouTube or Rumble videos, you'll see, and it's dated, documented, that they predicted that. And I'm just in awe of sometimes of the information that they come through with, especially when it's a prediction like that. And it's a different feeling when it's a weather prediction, because that contains devastation, whereas something, it's not as positive, you know, with something like a landing. But yeah, that there's diving deep is diving deep is what you do best, Jesse, is what they're saying.
We try, so and January 5th was the date that apparently this happened last year.
Thank you. So if people look back, because I haven't looked back myself on on the exact date, which is something I should do, but I've been so caught up in my work and everything that's going on in my own life that I haven't had time to actually sit down and write down the date. But if people look back 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of that occurrence, you'll see in the channeling that they have said, they predicted that a genuine landing would happen in Florida. I'd love to do this again, Jessie. There's so much more to dive deep. And you do have a very strong Pleiadian connection. I can really feel it. And also, thanks. Also, a Native American influence. Died, male chief.
Yeah, I've been immersed a lot with the Native American culture. I've been to probably 20 sweat lodges. I've been told I can come to their land anytime that I want. I've been, I've really, enjoyed their connection, and being in a sweat lodge is an experience like I've never had before. And the first time I thought my ears were going to melt. It was so hot, and I was trying to suck the cold air out of the ground because this was so hot in there. But I befriended a medicine man, and then I used to help him build the sweats and make the fires, and before all the people came, and used to do this quite often just because I really enjoyed the experience.
What's coming across is that you have a beautiful energy, very humble. You have a very unique energy that is quite unusual. There's a humbleness within you that you'll never lose, no matter how many people you reach, which is very sacred, very sacred.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That sounds kind of like me, I guess. Anything else that you wanted to share? If you wanted anything else, any other messages? We're coming around the 2-hour mark. You're definitely welcome to come back.
Thank you, Jessie. Love is a frequency that is measurable. Anything that can be measured can be created. We are creators. Go create. Go create. Now is the time. If there was ever a time to create a new earth, a new community, a new system, a new water supply, a new garden, a new education system. And we don't start at the top, we start at the bottom by going out to our garden and planting carrots or planting potatoes. Keep it simple. Use the resources that we have. Keep it simple. Keep the seeds small, but plant the seeds. Plant the potatoes, the carrots, the flowers, the herbs, the remedies. Filter our own clean water using an old method of sand, stones, gravel. Filter our own water. The water is so contaminated. All systems are so filled with chemicals and pollutions and toxins deliberately to negatively affect our bodies. And we need to wake up and realize that and create. We are creators, so we need to create and start small. We don't start at the top, we start at the bottom with the tools we have in our very hands and in our gardens, planting, cleaning the soil or detoxifying the soil as much as we can, and the water source and our surroundings, and start small, start small, start local, start in your neighborhood, in our neighborhood, with the environment, with the school system, with the children are a huge part, because that's where children are indoctrinated within the school system. So we need to start homeschooling, start communities, start clean water, clean clean food, clean vegetables, you know, and love and change. We are, you know, we need to stop waiting for a savior to come and save us, because we are the creators. We've created everything, and including the negative agenda, and love wins.
I love that. And Nettie from Japan says, what religion was she raised in? Just curious. Most people seem to be raised in a religion.
My mum was Catholic, so I was raised within that religion.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming and sharing this time here with us. It was great meeting you. How can people find you? I've been posting your website. I've been posting your website throughout. I've got what can they find on your website if they wanted to find your book? How could they find your book? Maybe you can share a little bit about, you know, yourself and how people can connect with you after this if they so feel the need to.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessie. It's been delightful to connect in and talk so more in depth about issues and subjects. So my website is somaarah.love. My email is thepleiadianchild@hotmail.com. My Substack is Soma ARah, which is I'm immigrating from the other social medias to Substack, because that seems to be the best way for me to go, and I highly recommend anyone to get onto Substack. It seems to be uncensored, and hopefully that I see that continuing. I do have groups where I sit down and channel the Pleiadians. I have a Saturday group at 7 p.m. Irish time, and Sunday 3 p.m. Irish time. Both groups are very different. The Saturday is more male energy, more masculine, and the Sunday group is more feminine. I also have a third group starting up on the 1st of April, which is for people who've signed up to my Substack as paid subscribers, whether they're paid for the month or the year or as a founder. I do have to add that this week I've had to cancel my groups because I'm in the middle of a house move. So I won't have a group tomorrow or Sunday, but they will continue next week. And we do lots of things in those groups. And also I have Facebook, Soma ARah. So yeah, connection to me at the moment seems to be very progressive for me, and more and more I'm just craving it at the moment, and which I think is part of the Ascension, where we are really connecting in with each other, and it's almost like a substance that we need. It's an energy of itself, where we have picked up our microphones and connected in with each other. I feel it's an aspect of Ascension that is kind of coded within us to reach out to others and unite and connect. So I'm loving that at the moment. I'm loving the connections I'm making, and the interviews and the channeling, and I also do readings as well, by the way, if you want to have a look at my website, which is somaarah.love. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Next week on the Missing Link Live on Monday, we've got Dr. Tyler Pansner, which is a neuroscientist. On Tuesday, we've got Jeff George, Stinky Cash. I believe he's a flat earther. On Wednesday, we've got Jaron Camparella. He did the final experiment where he just went to Antarctica with a group of people there. On Thursday, we've got Nachikita Fire. He's going to be back here for a second time, I think. And then we've got Lonnie Averill, a cowboy from Alberta, who's working with some good energy, water, and different things to help people. So that's next week on the Missing Link Live. May the source be with you and protection around you during this pivotal time in history. Knowledge is power. The more knowledge we all have collectively, the less power they have over us. For one love, one heart, one life. Namaste, everyone. Let's all face infinity without flinching. And if they ever ask you to put on a breathing inhibitor again, Soma ARah, you know what to say? No maske. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us here today, and have a wonderful weekend wherever you are in the world. Love y'all, and we'll see you next time we see you back here on The Missing Link. Thanks again, Soma ARah. Bye now.
Thank you, Jesse.